Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary. So a few weeks ago we made a game called Buff Delivery, a small project created from the most recent Let 'em Dare theme, Delivery. Now truth is Buff Delivery was not the first idea that was conjured up. Now today's project was that original plan, and there's a good reason that we ended up going with Buff Delivery instead. But before we get to the hows and whys, remember to leave a like if you enjoyed today's video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. We do fun game dev stuff here every week, so make sure notifications are turned on so you never miss future videos. So this project was a very simple concept. It's a social simulator mixed with a deck builder. The goal is to quote-unquote deliver bad news without getting the recipient too upset. Now each card will either add or subtract from the recipient's happy and sad meters, and each card's value are randomly generated with a deck consisting of 20 cards. Now these cards are obviously displayed at the bottom of the screen, and clicking on one will set off a chain of functions. First, the card is quote-unquote played, with the values of said card being applied to the recipient. If we have maxed out on one of the game's meters, the game is over. If not, the card is sent to the discard pile and a new card is drawn, which by the way is a literal moving of target cards from the player's hand to the discard pile. Then when a card is drawn, it first checks that there are enough cards to pull from the deck. If there are not, the discard pile is re-added to the deck and shuffled. Cards are then drawn based on the argument provided. Now, as someone who is terrible at math, it was quite an accomplishment to get this card shifting effect to work, which is pretty much done by just simply checking the card's current X position relative to their position in the hand. So for example, if we remove the first card, each card that follows has their position updated to move to the left, with the new cards automatically filing into the far right. And speaking of bad math, the target's facial expression was meant to be the way for the player to gauge just how well they were doing. However, I could not figure out the proper way to tie both meters into a single formula to find an average, because that average would have then decided the target's facial expression at that time. Instead, the target's facial expression is based on just their happiness, and the meters were added to make things easier to keep track of. And that's the project. Originally, the idea was to create static cards, like one card would be a Joker or something, and it would have like 100% happiness and 0 sadness. And then, deciding on what class that the player chose would determine what types of cards would show up in the deck. But sadly, that's about as far as the idea went, which is exactly why it was scrapped for Buff Delivery. And I actually kind of think that the concept has merit, There have been many RPGs released recently that replace battle mechanics with social mechanics, and I don't think a deck builder has ever really been attempted before in that style. So maybe this is one that's worth another look. I'm not sure. So what do you think? Is there enough there for us to truly flesh it out? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you would like to play some of my previous games featured on the channel or want early access to the weekly videos, subscribe to my Patreon. With that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.